My name is Satellites, and today we're going to be going over some Hammond gameplay. Now, we are starting on Numbani first point, and luckily for us, we have a decent team comp. We're running a Winston Hammond. Now, Hammond works well with almost every tank, surprisingly, but he really works well in triple tank comps, but unfortunately for us, we don't get that luxury. So, we see first of all, they're trying to put pressure down main with a Widow, who is left without her team, so I can really bully her due to my high mobility and her inability to actually escape from my pressure. So you'll see a lot of this on Hammond where you just kind of roll through the other team and put your damage in or get the kill and get out. I'll kind of back this up a little bit here because that last fight was really quick and concise, and there was a lot going on in that quick moment. So we pressure the Widow behind, throw as much damage in. Unfortunately, I get the angle wrong here, so I can't actually grapple in. However, all of their team has pushed high ground, and our Ana has already killed their Hammond. So now we're up one in this fight. So because of that, we can effectively roll into as much of their team as possible. And now we see their Zenyatta is really low, and their Tracer is really low. And we have our team already able to collapse the moment I roll through here. So because of that, we get two easy picks onto both their supports, D-Mech D.Va, and effectively clean up this fight. Now their Tracer managed to get out, however, because of my mobility, I'm able to get behind her and clean her up. And that's a reset. So very quick first fight, and we've already burned down a minute. Hammond's a really good hero for burning and stalling out time. And because of his mobility, you can harass a lot and not get punished for it unless they have heroes and ability to do it properly. So you'll see a lot of me flying in very deep on their backline, slamming in, building ult charge, and then rolling out when I can. And that's exactly how you want to be playing Hammond. When you don't have your cooldowns available, be spamming your primary fire. Since it's hit scan, you can always get away with doing a lot. Now, that fight was kind of sloppy, and I'll back that up a little bit to go over everything that happened and exactly why we lost that fight. Started the fight here. We see their Tracer, Hammond, and D.Va end up going to dive our backline. However, I go for the Zenyatta and their team peels back to peel for him. Now because of that, they're free to engage as soon as our monkey drops. So he drops shield and we're in a very bad position. So as our team goes to dive without any of the main tanks, their Tracer is free to pick up our Ana here while I'm going deep. Even though I ground slam and get a good minefield off, we're slowly losing pressure on our back line. Now, because I've died and two of our other members died, it's good to reset here because any stall here is just wasting time effectively. Even though Monkey popped ult, it's just feeding ult charge at this point. So something to avoid doing if possible. Now, we have the possibility to recontest here if we play this properly. However, it's a matter of setting up what's available for your team. Our Widow gets picked and our Lucio get picked. So I peel all the way back to spawn, or far as back as possible. Even though we just got their Pharah picked, it really doesn't do much because we're down 2 players already. We can't effectively put pressure back onto the card. I use mobility to position behind them and get the pick onto the Widow. And I'm going to see if I can secure the kill on Zenyatta. But I don't because I wasn't aware of their Hammond's position. So, while you are a hero with a lot of mobility, you always should be aware of the opposing team and their positionings. What I mean is because if you're not aware of where the other team is positioned, you can't effectively use him to his utmost ability as a hero that relies on that. Unfortunately here, I do end up getting picked off quite early into the fight. I'm going to go over this fight. I want to back up and cover everything here. I'm trying to throw in as much chip damage as possible, and the problem is Discord is putting a lot of pressure on me, and we don't have a lot of frontline to help me out right now, so I'm effectively feeding a lot of ult charge. Now that our monkey's in, however, I'm able to swing in and put a lot of harassment on their backline and look for who I can. Now I see the Widow. I'm going to throw as much damage into her as possible, but it doesn't work that well. Their Pharah ends up getting our Lucio. However, our Widow does get their Pharah. But because they're using a lot of ults, they burn Transcendence, they burn Feral, they burn Diva Bomb, they're able to capitalize taking this point without much contention from our team. So at this point, we just give the call to reset and back up because that is a lost fight. Now, points like this and maps like this in general are really good for Hammond because you can utilize corners and the verticality of the map to really take advantage of how he plays. So you'll see that a lot of this is what I'm doing right here, is where I roll on the corner and ground slam onto the cart. I don't know how long this bug is going to remain in the game, but if you ground slam on uneven terrain or something like a railing or the cart, sometimes your damage will stack additively, thus applying multiple instances of your damage. So sometimes your ground slam can do as much as 700 damage if you land on a really weird angle. Now, another thing with Hammond too in terms of this is if you ground slam on somebody directly, you should only do whatever damage you do, and then it falls off the farther away from Hammond's ground slam you go. However, if you slam a target directly with Hammond, anyone in his radius of 10 meters will take the same damage as whoever's closest to you. So if you slam someone directly, it does 100 damage. Everyone else in the radius will take 100 damage for some reason. So because of that, you can really get a lot of pressure onto the opposing team until this is hotfixed out. So you see that you do that whole thing where you throw minefield up in the air, you ground slam into the team, thus kind of soft pulling them into your minefield, building ult charge at the same time, and resetting. Luckily, I'm going to go over that last little fight because it was kind of over quickly without meaning to. So I kind of used the ball to peek the person because it's third-person camera, which is a little reusable. So take advantage of that. So you'll see I grapple hook in, pop minefield midair, and then immediately ground slam. Now, this is what you want to be doing, and it kills Zenyatta, and now I go immediately to Ana. If you can, pressure the healers first. Well, it's going to be nice to throw damage into like the bigger targets like Hammond to build ult charge. You really want to be cleaning up or throwing damage because you're a hit scan hero into their healers. Now Tracer's just staggering her stealth, and we end up securing the kill on Tracer, so we've bought ourselves an extra 10 seconds. Remember, try to stagger the opposing team as much as possible. If you've already won the fight, try to secure those last kills as best as possible without overextending onto the opposing team. We're kind of throwing in damage. We have walls up now. We're kind of looking for what we can do. Now, they're not effectively pushing in because their Diva's on high ground and their team isn't really coordinated. We demech Diva here, which is huge, actually. Now they can't push in because they don't have a tank to front line. They do pick up our Hanzo and our Widow as well, so now we're down DPS. So this is very risky for us. However, due to the nature of Hammond, you can just ground slam onto the team, throw in the damage that you can. I ended up securing Widow here, and then immediately turn to roll into the Tracer. Now, Tracer can't really deal with Hammond all that well because Hammond has so much more mobility than Tracer. So you can tend to take 1v1s. It's best to not to unless they're low mobility heroes or low burst heroes. They can be high DPS like Soldier. You can take 1v1s with, although not recommended, but it's better if you avoid dueling with Reaper or people that can deal with your mobility like Mei. So they're looking for another push. I'm pressuring the cart as much as possible. I throw minefield directly on cart so they can't push it forward during this nano boost. They do pop Devault and we pop Hanzo ult to keep the pressure away from their front line and split their team up. Now I'm looking for a ground slam, which I do secure and pick up Zenyatta while our Widow ends up killing the Widow in the 1v1. So we won that fight pretty quickly. We demech Diva because she bombed really early and we got the kill on her. And when you use Hammond like you're supposed to, where you kind of rope in, ground slam, throw in some damage and roll out, it really, really messes with the other team's momentum. They aren't able to properly push in because you're constantly harassing the other team's positioning. Now here you'll see I take the fight with Widow, use grappling hook to recontest her high ground and force her to drop. Use the ground slam and then immediately clean her up with primary fire, and that's what you want to be seeing a lot of, is just constant bullying of whoever you can. Now I'm going to back this up a little bit because that actually showcased really good Hammond tech and how you want to be using it. I have grappling hook up and I see Widow, so I start storing damage in, and as I drop, she takes the high ground. I use grappling hook to take the fight up high ground, and because she used her grappling hook and she has no ability, the moment I'm falling, I actually use my ground slam to knock her up and clean up the primary fire. However, then I use my roll into their Zenyatta, which focuses the opposing team's attention all onto me. You'll see they all turn onto me. So I'm now discorded and is going to try to land on sleep on me. Because Hammond's ball form and turret form are pretty much instantaneous switching, and they have like almost no cooldown, I can use ball form to gain a little burst of mobility when I need it and roll out of the way and then pop back up if need be. So roll through a few of their team, ground slam, building a fair bit of alt charge, and rolling back towards my team where I can get healed. So while it is good to do this, like a lot of this flanking strategy, make sure you're always in a position where if you need to be healed, you can be healed. Now, I'm quite overextended here, which is what I'm talking about. I ended up getting picked because they have a Roadhog and I got discorded and bursted down. Now, we're even at this point. We've traded one of our healers in a DPS for one of their tanks and one of their DPS. So they can't really push in because our respawn is closer. And because I can constantly look for this high ground pressure, I can just throw in whatever I want to in their backline. All I use Minefield quite high up in the air because I see the time remaining left in this game, and I know as long as I keep all of them away from the card as long as possible, they can't do much about this. So I dive in, use cooldowns, pop it on Zenyatta, burn him down, and now they can't touch the cart because there is mines on the cart. So they go in, they're taking chip damage. We've already picked their Zenyatta, and now we've picked their Zarya. So now this fight should be free for ours to clean up. Roadhog ends up taking a lot of damage from my Minefield, and their Tracer is the only one left to touch cart. I roll to boop them back and then ground slam to clean up and knock up the Tracer. So effectively they've lost this fight now because they didn't properly reset the moment the Zenyatta got picked, and as a result lost the final fight. So that's kind of what you want to be doing on Hammond, is kind of looking and harassing as much as possible. Now, we could have probably full held on this map, but we didn't really start turning around and working together until we had that last point. Well, it hasn't been really realized yet because Hammond is such a new character. You're going to see him a lot in pro play, I feel. Less so in solo queue, but a lot in pro play, just due to the nature of his kit. Numbani is one of the better maps for Hammond. Hammond doesn't really do well on maps with low vertical mobility or anything where he can't really grapple to on a high ground. Maps that aren't really suitable for Hammond are like first point of Junkertown isn't very suitable because it's fairly open. There's limited high ground. There's not a lot you can grapple off of that really set him above the opposing team. Maps, however, that you wouldn't expect to be very good are stuff like King's Row because of a lot of narrow passage and corridors that you can actually just roll through the opposing team or ground slam into them to take full advantage of his kit. So here we are rolling up to our attacks on Numbani. We see they have a Widow. She's doing damage on Ryan, Zarya. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to swing through their team even though it risks taking a lot of damage. But because I have really high mobility, I don't really get punished for it. And as a result, we pick up Anna. I ground slam onto point and do my fair share of damage and end up just throwing it on a ball form and rolling through their team. Their Widow picks our Hanzo, however, our Winston picks up their McCree. So now we're still up one in this fight. I roll through, throwing in a little bit of damage. We get a good purple off this, instantly deleting their Zarya. Now it's 2v our team. So I ground pound in, knock up the Reinhardt, waste charge, Their Widow cleans up our Tracer, our Lucio dies to their Baguette, sorry, and then our Monkey cleans up Baguette. So this fight now turned drastically against us because we left their Widow uncontested, which is our Monkeys should have been going for the moment she took high ground. So I'm just kind of looking for what damage I can. Unfortunately, it's a little late in the fight. I use my barrier to live with what little health I did have left, and now we can effectively recontest because our Hanzo secures 3 massive picks onto the opposing team. So this is essentially a one fight at this point. Tracer ends up cleaning up the last tick of damage. Ryan ends up pinning too deep, and we secure the kill on Ryan, and now we're trying to secure any staggers we can. So here I knock up Widow, and that was that double damage bug I'm talking about. You'll notice how I launched her twice as high as normal. That's also because I did twice as much damage, and this was the example of landing on a unorthodox slope or not so level ground. And I don't know exactly where I landed that set that off, I guess on the ledge, but I sent her twice as high and I did twice as much damage. So I can effectively burst down Widow here, pop my shield and roll out. So now we've staggered Widow, which is very good for us. However, being Hammond, you can roll back in, look for what damage you can, and roll back out. Not a problem. So there's still back spawn, so we're going to see what pressure we can get on their other team. Moira ends up getting too close to me, and Hammond's primary fire, well, it's not exactly the strongest in terms of DPS. If you're in headshot range and you have someone's good tracking, it's 10 damage a hit on headshot, which is pretty adequate at his rate of fire. So I was able to clean up Moira here. Our Tracer dies, however, they're still down 1 for the rest of this, and they haven't had a proper reset yet. So I end up dropping in on their team, get hooked, but I pop and go to pop shield, I immediately die because it wasn't on cooldown. It was still on cooldown, sorry. So we're still getting cart control. We use dragons during the shatter to prevent them from engaging on it, which is very, very important. Our Tracer secures the pick onto their soldier, and now we have free engage because they still aren't properly regrouped. So our Monkey gets nanoed, their Ryan gets nanoed, our Monkey secures their Ana, and our Roadhog trades. So we are now up. We're even in this fight because their Roadhog picked our Ana and Monkey, their Widow picked our Tracer. Now it's just me pretty much left on this point. Lucio's here too, however. Roadhog burns his ult to stall the point, secure the point for that. Their Moira ends up actually securing the kill. So here I'm using third person to peek the cart, so Roadhog can't land a hook and kill me here. The moment he backs off, I use Minefield and Ground Slam and set up the proper damage. Now, while this is off screen, there is a Roadhog behind me, and he's getting ticked pretty heavily by Minefield, so he's forced to use Take a Breather. They have a Reaper now, so I have to be a little careful about how I engage here. So I take a soft low roll and then ground slam immediately and take the corner to get out. However, I get hooked. We use Beat, however, they use Coalescence, and our Monkey repositions onto their Widow. We get a huge pick on the Reaper and a double Dragon Strike onto the Moira and Widow. And Monkey during his ultimate kills their Zenyatta. So this fight is now drastically turned in our favor. So at this point, we've pretty much cleaned up everyone on this point. Even though we had to expend a few ultimates to use it, we're getting some extra ult charge from Roadhog at this point. And they've set ourselves up because they took such a late fight that we're able to harass their backline and essentially do what I'm doing right here. Even though I fed, we secured that kill onto Zenyatta, staggering them, and they don't have the ability to pressure cart on the first corner. So that's to what, remember, always secure the kills. That's what you want to be looking for. So we have walls up. Our Hanzo is putting in some beautiful work. So at this point, we're just trying to secure kills, throw as much damage as possible. I'm practically spamming Minefield because of how fast you actually build it is insane. I've already 40% since I've already popped it, and we secured the kill onto Roadhog, which is very important here. We force trance. However, their Rhine isn't able to be healed because he stands right outside of trance range at the end. This fight is a little sloppy, so I'm going to back it up and cover everything that happened in this fight and what led us to this win and why. So this starts actually a fair while back. We have 2 picks onto their team. I go deep, pop minefield. Their Zenyatta secures our Widow. Their Rhine and Hog are on top of me. Their Zenyatta is playing back. However, because minefield, I put it in such a... I was up in the air when I did it, and their Hog was already too far forward. He pops Take a Breather really early in this, and he eats a lot of damage from minefield. And because of that, when he was trying to exit, he ends up hitting a mine, and I'm able to clean him up. So all this time, they haven't had a proper time to contest cart. So I slam onto Zenyatta, forcing trance, and because I knocked him up, he wasn't able to trance forward into the Rhine fast enough, and Rhine's up dying before Zenyatta can reach him. McCree was on the flank. Moira and Zenyatta are now left on the point pretty much. We try to turn our attention to Moira. However, our monkey ends up focusing their McCree down. Our Widow lands 2 very beautiful picks, and that is pretty much that fight. Very clean and concise. This entire second half was very, very well executed play and very, very good staggering against the opposing team. So that's what you kind of want to be looking for Hammond, is pushing deep, using your shield properly, using your combos properly, you know, laying your chip damage. That in and out kind of playstyle, secure the kills you can, and secure the staggers. Hammond, with his high mobility, can really, really put in the work securing staggers. So you can just, the moment you secure a point or you're pushing a payload, clean up whoever you can. You're Hammond. You have the ability to, you're a tank. That's what you should be looking for. However, that being said, this has been Satellites. Thanks for watching this video in the Hammond series. Till next time, guys, take care.